This video is sponsored by BOCHUM, the place for all your Pokemon TCG online needs. They have code cards from a huge variety of sets, so definitely check it out, BOCHUM. Also, if you use the coupon code ZapdosTCG, you get 5% of your next order. How cool is that? Time to change the rules today. No supporter when you start, okay. The fairy dust will go away. Don't change to psychic, it does not rage. Resistance is not buffing up. Dirty is not quite enough. Water is weak to lightning up. If you play that well, then tough luck. Pika Rum will eat you up. So the weakness might just suck. Psychic are no sitting ducks, cause they're weak to darkness, huh? From erratas and new cards to sweet regulation marks. We'll talk about it, all go hard. To prepare everyone, we'll go far. Sup YouTube, it's ZapdosTCG here and welcome back to another episode on my channel. In this episode we're going to talk about the huge rule changes in the Sword and Shield metagame. So if you're excited, be sure to demolish the like button, subscribe if you want to stay updated about everything Pokemon TCG, and also click that little notification bell which will make things a whole lot easier for you. Okay, the Sword and Shield metagame will start on the 21st of February 2020, and that already brings an internationals with it along the Melbourne Internationals, or actually the Oceania Internationals, so that's going to be very excited. And there's going to be huge rule changes implemented in that metagame because Sword and Shield brings a couple of things with it that you should know about, and that's what this video is all about. Also, we did already talk about the first turn no supporter rule. That is also a video you should check out. The link will be in the description below if you want to say, hear everything in full detail. This is just an overview, actually a summary of everything you should know about before getting into the Sword and Shield metagame. Okay, also I should notice that I wanted to get this video out as quickly as possible, but I only got the time now because I was at BOCHUM for the regionals and actually did quite well. If you want to see those vlogs, those are also up on the channel. So, Sword and Shield. This is a new block in the trading card game, so we're done with Sun and Moon, and this is going to be the first time in a long while that there's going to be a huge rule change on the first turn. On the first turn, the player going first can no longer use supporters. What does that mean? No Cynthias, no Welder. That means typically, before this rule change takes place, everybody say like flip a coin. You say something. Oh, it's that's something that you said. Well, you say I'm going first. Why is that? You can use your first turn Welder on a Mewtwo. You can use a Cynthia if you're playing Malamar, getting some Incase down. Well, supporters on the first turn are no longer possible. So what I predict seeing is that people will start to go second, because second you can attack and you can play supporters. Or deck building will go completely different. People will be playing the Dene GX because abilities still work on the first turn, and also a lot of items, so things like Acrobike for example, so people can still get their setup while going first. So a lot of like setup decks that need evolution still want to go first, but a huge basic decks probably will want to go second so they can attack immediately. Think about Metal Sorcerer, the item card that accelerates metal energies to the bench metal Pokemon. Those decks might want to go second so they can use spam supporters, spam Metal Sorcerers, and attack on the first turn and maybe donk. So yeah, there's going to be a huge way we are going to be revamping our decks because they have to be ready to go with this new rule change. So that is that. So let me know what you think about the first turn rule that a player going first cannot use supporter. Wilder is something I think like is gonna hurt a lot because double Blaze GX for 300 and going through everything is something we've seen a lot. Think like Cross Division GX on the second turn, bam, that's crazy. Well, on the first turn, you cannot play a supporter, so the maximum amount of a Welder can be like 4. You can attach of the turn and then pass. Then if you go second, actually if it's your second turn, you use Welder and attach of the turn, so you only get a maximum of 4. So that means Flare Strike is an option, maybe Hot Burn GX for 200. So going overboard with those energy attachments from a Welder is insane. Also, things like Malamar will be using Quick Ball, lots of item-based draw like Acrobike, so Acrobike, Quick Ball, Mysterious Treasure, and all that. So we'll see how deck building changes, or actually how the decks, recover from that first turn rule change. I think a lot of them will change, but we'll have to wait and see. So that's the first thing on the list. Next up is weakness and resistance. As we can see from the Zacian V card is that the resistance has now been buffed to -30. So it's back like the days of Diamond and Pearl, I believe. So that means, let's say a grass Pokemon smacks into Zacian V, the damage output is reduced by 30, which is kind of cool, I guess. So -20 is like a little mediocre compared to the weakness, because weakness is ×2 and resistance was only -20. So -30 actually can be a huge deal in terms of one-hitting KOing, so that is interesting to see. Also, certain Pokemon have their typings rearranged, so typically you would have like Metal-type Pokemon having a resistance to Psychic. This time around, they get a resistance to Grass. Also, something else here is the Water-type Pokemon. Most of them, or actually if not all of them in the future, will now be weak to Lightning instead of Grass. So they want to balance the typing in the trading card game. So the meta game is fair, and that's why Water typing now gets a weakness to Lightning. What does that bring along with it? Well, Pikarom gets a huge increase in play with the Sword and Shield meta game thanks to Quick Ball and Tapu Koko V. So what we can see is that if you are a Water type, let's say Lapras VMAX, and you are weak to Lightning, you're actually gonna get caught in the crossfire between the popularity of Pikarom. So that means being a Water type will not be as good anymore because we will be weak to Lightning. Next up is that Psychic Pokemon will be weak to Darkness instead of just Psychic. Typically you would have, let's say, the days of Mewtwo EX. You have like the Mewtwo EX wars. Mewtwo is weak to Psychic, so Mewtwo is weak to itself. The same is true for Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX. It is weak to Psychic, so you have kind of those wars like if you're in the mirror, oh, I'm going first, I have the Welder, wow, boom, your Mewtwo is gone. Unless you have the weak guard energy, but still, Psychic types will now be weak to Darkness, which is good because Darkness did not smack a lot for weakness, so they did have, of course, the good typing and expanded with the dark patches and all that stuff, but now in standard the dark box is now hitting Psychic for weakness, which is very interesting to say the least. And then last but not least, Darkness types will have a weakness to Grass. Why is that? Well, some Pokemon have a resistance that they didn't have in the past, but we have to be on the lookout for the weakness and resistance for most Pokemon. But some Pokemon, for instance, we'll have to see our type rearrangement. Some Darkness Pokemon will now be weak to Grass, probably because there's Bug type Pokemon also in the Grass category, so there's that. Very interesting to say the least. So we have like a new way. Oh, it's a Darkness Pokemon that's weak to Grass, so they have like the balance on the trading card game right now. Next up is the type rearrangement. The Fairy type, which was introduced in X and Y, will no longer be supported in the Sword and Shield trading card game. So from now on, that doesn't mean that all of your Fairy types are now banned. No, that's not the case. They will last as long as they get not rotated. So that means in August, some of them will get rotated, but still, I think it's going to be a team up onwards. That means that some of the Fairy types will still survive in the meta game, and there's even Fairy type energies in the Elite Trainer box of Sword and Shield. So that's saying that Fairy type is still around for at least an extra year, but starting from Sword and Shield on, there will no longer be new Fairy type Pokemon printed. So if you go over the set list, you will see there's no Fairy types around. So they're gonna get rid of the Fairy type, and they will now be represented as Psychic type. So as a little summary, Gardevoir, that's a good summary, I guess. So Gardevoir, not GX, but just Gardevoir in general, was a Fairy type and will now be a Psychic type in the Pokemon TCG. To maintain the balance among types, Pokemon that are Poison types in the video games will now be represented as Darkness types. Pretty weird because some of those Darkness types will have a weakness to Grass, as seen from Sable IV, but what can we do about it? So for the time being, Fairy energy can still be used in standard format, but that might change in the future. So as we get a rotation, we'll see what happens, but Fairy types are gone. So the TCG is gonna get a whole shook up, and a lot of people that are loving the Fairy type will now cry. That's also something I wonder here, because Gardevoir GX won a World Championships. We saw Guardian do very well, Sylveon GX as well. So Fairy type was kind of prominent in the TCG. I wonder why they got rid of it, because I did not think it was like unbalanced or something, because they were weak to Metal, and now Metal gets a boost thanks to Metal Saucer. Who knows, but it is there. Next thing is the card errata. Several cards will be issued in errata, effective of course on the February the 21st. And that's going to be Energy Retrieval. Energy Retrieval was a card introduced back all the way in, I think, base sets? Yeah, it's going way back. So that card is insane. And the minor text changes, like, it says like, get 2 energies back from your discard pile, while the minor card errata is now put up to 2 basic energies from your discard pile into your hand. This could be very relevant for, let's say you're playing Victini Prism Star, and you have 1 energy in the hand, and you need one more to get that welder off, to get the infinity attack going on, because otherwise you don't have any energies anymore. But you definitely need those extra energies in the discard pile for infinity to just get the one-hit KO. Well, that's where energy retrieval is now better, because it says up to 2 basic energies, you don't have to get 2 of them. Okay. Same effect for Pal Pad. The Pal Pad shuffles up to 2 supporters from your discard pile into your deck. You don't have to pick 2, you can pick 1 or you can pick 2. So that is a huge difference, because sometimes we have to use Pal Pad for like a Professor Alm's lecture and a Cynthia, for instance, and you only wanted to have the Cynthia. And now your deck is clumped up with Alm's lecture. Well, that's no longer the case, because Pal Pad now has the errata that you can just select 1 or 2. Lumberry, introduced in Ruby and Sapphire, has a minor text change. At the end of each turn, if the Pokemon this card is attached to is affected by a special condition, it recovers from all them and discard this card. So minor text change, because they now recover from special conditions instead of like healing special conditions. Same is true for the Citrus Berry. Citrus Berry, seen in Unseen Forces all the way back. It does state here that at the end of each player's turn, of this turn, at the end of each turn, if this Pokemon card has attached 3 or more damage counters on it, heal 30 damage from that Pokemon and then discard this card. So Citrus Berry, just like in the video games, instead of like healing 30 HP, it heals 3 damage counters, which is sweet, but at the end of each turn. So they check after each turn. Then Hyper Potion, heal 120 damage from one of your Pokemon that has at least 2 energies attached. If you healed any damage, discard 2 energy from that. So you need at least 2 energy. So it's basically like a double super potion. Not that I'm gonna see too much play. Maybe in Malabar, because you can recover the energies, and maybe with the balloon and the Darwin's Necrozma, you can just get yourself on the active position and reattach those energies. We'll see how that goes. And then Quick Ball is a minor text change that you can play this card only if you discard another card from the hand and search your deck for a basic Pokemon, reveal it, and put it in the hand. So those are just minor text changes. I think some older copies can still be used, so you have to check that with your judges. So some older copies can still be used. Next up is Professors. We saw Professor Juniper back in the days, Black and White, I believe. And then we have X and Y with Professor Sycamore. Well, all of these Professors did the exact same thing. Discard your hand and draw 7 fresh cards. Well, the weird thing that is an expanded that you can only play one of either, so you can play like for Juniper or for Sycamore, not mixing them both together. And that was a huge deal, because in expanded now they let's say that this Professor's research will get rotated in like 3 years. That means that they will have to errata something or actually ban another card, because you cannot overlap them. So what they were gonna do right now is that instead of naming this card Professor Magnolia, they are gonna name it Professor's Research. What does that mean? That in the future, if we get a new game and a new supporter, they will also call it Professor's Research with the same effect: discard your hand and draw 7 cards. Or something else entirely, that could also be the case, is that Professor's Research could be like a one-off in actually one-off effects in your deck. You can only have 4 Professor's Research, but they can actually do something differently. Let's say they print Professor's Research for a Kukui or whatever, and it does another effect like smack 30 extra damage. Well, that's let's just hypothetically, that could mean that you can play different copies of Professor's Research, but only 4 at the time. So that's also a case, but in my opinion, it will only be the case that they're not gonna scratch their head too much and expand it here, because that means Professor's Research will only be that. You can only play that, and in the future on, it will just have the same effect with a new Professor. Yeah, just minor things, because there's plentiful of supporters that does this effect, which is very interesting. Next up is the Between Turns phase. Typically you would have Shrine of Punishment kicks in between turns, but nowadays they just have a new term for that, and that's going to be the Pokemon Checkup phase. After the player's turn is complete, you'll enter this checkup phase, and before going to the next player. So here are the steps for the Pokemon checkup phase, aka between turns. So we're now going to call it Pokemon checkup phase. And now there'll also be printed on the card. They're going to be say like, let's say Shrine of Punishment for V Pokemon. Not that card exists, but as a little example, it will state like during the Pokemon checkup phase, put 1 damage counter on each of your Pokemon Vs, for instance. Next up, in this Pokemon checkup phase, first off, we check for special conditions in this order. First poison, then burn, then asleep, and then paralyzation. So those are the orders for the special condition. Next up, we check abilities and effects of trainer cards that happen during the Pokemon checkup phase. For instance, a trainer card that says like in the checkup phase your Magikarp explodes or whatever, so that is when it happens. You can choose this step but before checking the special conditions. However, you can't mix the both steps. So for instance, if you are checking for special conditions, you cannot go checking the abilities. It's one of both. So for example, you can add poison damage, then apply the ability, then go back to a special condition, for instance sleep. Check to see if a Pokemon is knocked out is the last step in the Pokemon checkup phase. Alright, we're getting closer to more information here. Next up is the recover. Yeah, that is a new term that they're gonna implement. Back in Black and White, the term heal was used for healing a Pokemon. Let's say you smack down a potion, you heal 30 damage from that Pokemon. Now it's gonna stay remove 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon. Okay, it's interesting. So for example, yeah, and Black and White days it was remove 3 damage counter from one of your Pokemon. Now it says heal 30 damage from one of your Pokemon. Okay, now is the new phase, heal and recover in those days. So now in Sword and Shield, a similar term will be used for those effects. We will be going forward, and the term recover will be used as a way to get rid of special conditions. Heal 60 damage will still get rid of some damage counters, but heal will be used for damage, and recover will be associated with special conditions. So heal, damage, and then we have the recover for special conditions. Pretty easy. Just some text improvements. Next is the reminder. That is going to be a lot of reminder text removal. In the past, abilities that could be used during your turn included the text before you attack. Let's say once during your turn before you attack, la 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 la. But to clarify that the attacking was the last part you could do in a turn, but that's pretty obvious because as soon as you attack, your turn ends. So yeah. Starting with the Sword and Shield metagame, that text won't appear anymore. We just have to make it obvious. In some cases, that reminder text could be incorrect, since there's abilities that could be used during the effects of an attack. For example, if you use Persian GX Slashback, 150 damage, and you go to the bench, and then switch with Heatran GX, Burning Road ability activates when it becomes active, even though that happens during the attack. So that's why it says before you attack in the implementation. So to prevent this confusion altogether, the reminder text will be removed from the Sword and Shield series. It's just going to be stated on the card what you have to do, but still some text removal. And then the last thing is very, very nice for people that don't know what standard and expanded is, and you say, is this card legal? Can I use it in my deck? Well, it's going to be very interesting because with a new block, let's say a new block of, I think, 4 sets, they will have a stamp. In this corner, for the Sword and Shield expansion, they will have a D mark. That means that as soon as like the team up set and all that gets rotated like in 2 years, that means that the Sword and Shield metagame will be very interesting, because as soon as new sets get released, let's say we have 8 Sword and Shield sets, and you can only use 4 sets from those Sword and Shield sets. Well, you can just see on the corner, every block will have a new ladder. That means in this scenario, this Grookey has a D. That means that you can just look in the bottom corner and just say, oh, it's a D. That means that it's still legal and standard. In the future, maybe they will have an E mark, and there we will say like what is now legal. Well, everything with an E mark, so it makes things a whole lot easier for newer players to just get your new decks built together and see which cards are legal. So this is a regulation mark, and it will be used in the future to determine which cards are legal to use in tournament play. For example, as mentioned here with the D mark, that's going to be for standard format, and this will change and to get the attention in the future. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think about all these huge rule changes in the trading card game, and I'm very excited to start my testing with Sword and Shield. What I think personally is that the regulation mark is cool. Text removal, I don't think it's necessary, but the less text is on a card, the more beautiful it is. Definitely in a full art. The recover and healing terms is just something we won't pay attention to. Pokemon checkup phase, I don't know. I like between turns better, so I don't know. Pokemon checkup phase, it's gonna be hard to adapt to that term. The professors, I get that. It's otherwise you have like Sycamore, Juniper, Magnolia, and then the new supporter comes out. For the erratas, I do think that Palpat and Energy Retrieval are my favorites, because up to 2 is always better than having to just get 2. Or for example, Energy Retrieval, another example is that, oh no, I have a Lily in hand but also need an Energy Retrieval for 1, attach, and then Lily, so you don't have too many cards in the hand. Type arrangement, that is something I find weird. I find it sad that the Fairy type is gone. Very, very sad. I used to love Fairy types, even though I never played Fairy types. I did play a couple of Metal types here and there, so you could smack them for weakness, but that's gone now. And then weakness and resistance, minus 30. I love that better than minus 20. Minus 20 was like mediocre to say the least. But like, let's say minus 30 with a metal frying pan with a full metal wall GX, that means the grass type Pokemon will be dealing 90 less damage to Zacian V, which would be insane. And yeah, the first turn rule change. I don't know. I think a lot of decks will just adapt playing more items and then a GX, but we'll have to see with testing how that goes. Anyhow, have a fantastic rest of your day. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to demolish the like button. Let me know your opinion about all these rule changes, because I'm very curious to hear your opinions. And also, if you enjoy the rest of your day, also let me know, because this is going to be a fresh new start, Sword and Shield. Get your friends pumped, get yourself some pre-releases started here and there, because next week you're definitely going to go to one, hopefully, and pull that Zacian V, you know. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Thanks again for watching. Till next time. Peace.